Hello, and welcome to Of the People. My name is Robert Chernin. Thank you so much for joining us again. We need to talk about parental rights. If there's ground zero in the culture war, it's parental rights. Control a child's education, control what they can do or can't do. You control the next generation. And that's really what's going on here. It's ground zero. First and foremost, when you hear the term public education or public schools, it's not public. It's government-controlled education and government-run schools that dictate curriculum. Everyone knows that to be true. But let's look at the things that parents have no rights on. A parent has no right if a child wants to transition or transgender or whatever the term is in school. Yet if they go to the hospital and they need an operation and they're a minor, we are not only legally responsible for their medical bills, a hospital will not operate without parental permission. We're not supposed to know what's going on in their curriculum. There are schools now that are out there that if a parent wants to know, they have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Sounds far-fetched, but that's accurate. Years ago, if a child was supposed to be given aspirin in school, they had to get parental permission. These days, doesn't happen. So the real question is, what are parental rights? What rights do we as a parent have? And let's be clear, if you're a minor, we're the major, they're the minors. We're responsible. They're not supposed to drink if they're underage. They certainly can't enlist in the military. They can't even, those student loans that they therefore are not responsible for paying back. If they're under age of majority, we sign for that as well. So all of these things, as parents, we're responsible for, yet we have no rights. And we have no ability to have input into their curriculum, into whether they're going to be transgendered or they're going to become some other gender or identify as some other gender. We don't have rights to understand their curriculum. This is ground zero. I'll say it again. This is ground zero in the culture war. It's all about parental rights. The real problem that's going on here is that the other side, whatever you want to label the other side as, has control and they don't want to give it back. And again, as we've talked about, the teachers unions, the NEA, National Education Association, and my favorite, Randy Weingarten from the American Federation of Teachers, they're not about the children. It's not even, frankly, about teachers. It's about politics. It's about big money, big education, and protecting their right and their power. So Moms for Liberty and all these other parental groups that have sprung up are really a necessary fight that we have at ground zero for what's really going to determine the course of the country. It's all about parental rights. We can talk about censorship. We can talk about the media. We can talk about all sorts of other things. But the rubber hits the road, as the expression goes, in parental rights and the control or the influence or the ability to direct that we as parents have, controlling, directing, having say in. Pick the words you want. I'm sure people will pick apart what I'm saying. I don't care. But parental rights are children's rights, and children's rights will determine the country we're going to live in. This is ground zero of the culture war. Don't let anybody tell you differently. We'll talk about this more in the upcoming show, but parental rights, that's what this comes down to. Stay tuned. We'll come right back with the main show. Hello, and welcome back to Of the People. I'm Robert Chernin with
Ericka Redic,
my lovely co-host, Ericka. Parental rights. It was the opening monologue. It's still, the more I think about it, Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, I think has it right. One of the paths back from the wilderness is most parents care about their kids. They care about, they want their kids to start off better than they do. But parents have to have a say in their children's upbringing. Other than that, they're just the blue collar means of production, right? So all this stuff we were talking about makes me crazy. It's encapsulated by this whole, the book Gender Queer.
And is it what's
Unfortunately,
the other
yes.
Maya? Is it Kobabe or Kobe? I mean Kobabe, folks. I butcher names all day long. Did you
Yeah.
hear? Did you hear? So Senator Kennedy, not the late dead Senator Kennedy from Massachusetts,
Yeah.
Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, as part of the Senate Judiciary, read into the record, right, um, the text from the book Gender Queer, which is in, you know, all the the public libraries and in school libraries, and whether or not it's appropriate for children. Have you read?
Mm.
Did you hear that? Did you read that? Did you?
I did. I read the article, and I said to myself, well, then it must be all of our librarians are stupid. Because there's actually like schooling to be a librarian. And so what you're trying to say is that they're all dumb and confused an adult graphic novel
Ericka,
with
they're
a
not dumb.
children's book.
Ericka, you keep saying they're dumb, and you've said this in many, many of our shows. They're not dumb. This is with
No, this is
intent.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So, like, you want me to suspend reality, right? That's a term we use when Benjamin and I when we go to the movies, right? Like when you go to a Marvel movie, in order to like stay in the movie and whatever, or like a Fast and Furious, you have to suspend reality because gravity exists, and so they're asking us to believe that it's just a simple mistake. Oh, it's just a simple mistake. This isn't a kid's book. It's not meant to be in kids' libraries. What? That's not
But
what?
so so
I did
so
not fall off a turnip truck yesterday.
really, was it the day
I
before yesterday?
it was 3 days ago.
3 days ago. Okay. Did you bump your
Three
head?
days. I did.
Okay. Okay.
It
Um,
hurt.
by the way, can't be telling the truth because it's not turnip season. I just want you to know. Okay. So either that or the truck was coming from California, which explains why you fell off it. But look, folks, all the uproar. I mean, for those of you who aren't familiar with what we're talking about, so there's two issues
Yeah.
here. The first is the book by Maya Kobabe called Gender Queer, right? Which is really so age inappropriate. And that's really what we're talking about.
Mm,
And keep in mind, we're doing this through the prism of parental rights. But the
yeah.
second issue is if it's a book, you shouldn't ban books. I get that. There's a place for every book. The question is a book like this, which is routinely pushed in public schools, public libraries are one thing, you put it, what would be, I mean, you go to see a movie, there are ratings, right? There's a
Yeah.
G or PG, there's an R,
Yes.
there's an X
Yes.
rating. Not that I've ever been to any.
NC-17,
C-17, right?
Yep.
So I'm not talking about banning books. I'm talking about but books should be age appropriate for what they're available to.
Correct.
But hang on a second. So we're going to go a little off the reservation here,
Oh.
folks. So we're going to play you some of the recording that Senator Kennedy, United States Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, read into the record from
Oh.
Gender Queer. Now, folks, full disclosure, this is very graphic content. If there are any children listening, I would tell you to sort of change the station for about 5 minutes because it is age inappropriate
Oh my gosh.
for someone who is certainly not of age, in
Yep.
my
Had your
opinion.
kids, had your wife.
Right.
In all sincerity, hold on, Robert.
Yeah.
When I saw this clip of Senator Kennedy reading it, I didn't actually know what I was listening to. I just like came on, YouTube or something as I was doing the dishes or whatever. And all of a sudden I hear Senator Kennedy's voice saying these sexually explicit things. And I was like, is he reading like a porno or like
Right.
one of those those books that the ladies read, those like softcore porn books or whatever. I was shocked.
I got it. But I want to segue for the parents who are listening. So I want to
Okay.
get to this first and I want to come back to this, right? So
Okay.
go right now. We're going to play this video and audio component. It is not appropriate for someone under 18. So full disclosure, tune back in 5 minutes, or you can go to the podcast. Just, when you
Fast
are
forward.
solo. But young children, inappropriate for age.
Yep.
Here we go. Senator Kennedy, Senate Judiciary Committee, reading from Maya Kobabe's book, Gender Queer. Here's what all the uproar is about.
I confess I'm a little confused, and I appreciate the argument or discussion that we've been having, but for me, it's a little too conceptual, or I don't know, metaphysical or theological or whatever you want to call it. I want to try to understand what you're asking us to do. Let's take two books that have been much discussed. The first one is called All Boys Aren't Blue, and I will quote from it. I put some lube on and got him on his knees, and I began to slide into him from behind. I pulled out of him and kissed him while he masturbated. He asked me to turn over while he slipped a condom on himself.
I'm sorry. I have to interrupt and stop real quick the video. So, folks, you're getting a sense of what we're talking about. I don't advocate for banning books, and I certainly don't advocate for burning books. But the graphic nature of this kind of content, at the very least, needs, let's call it an NC-17 rating.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
If not an X rating. So where are we with that? It's so age inappropriate. The fact that it's available. And again, they're saying, oh, well, we didn't mean to put it there. And by the way, folks, this is a comic book. Let's go back to listening.
A graphic novel.
This was my and I was struggling to imagine someone inside me. He got on top and slowly inserted himself into me. It was the worst pain I think I have ever felt in my life. Eventually, I felt a mix of pleasure with the pain. Close quote. All boys aren't blue.
Okay, as you're listening to this, folks, remember that the parents who were at school board meetings, complaining that this book is in their elementary school and available to their elementary school children are being called, Nazis and being terrorists and being reported to the DOJ as being a threat to democracy. Okay. So if you oppose children listening to this, you are a terrorist threat to democracy. Okay. Let's keep listening.
I can't wait to put it on you. It will fit my favorite dildo perfectly. You're going to look so hot. I can't wait to have your in my mouth. I'm going to give you the of your life. Then I want you inside of me.
So, folks, again, just to put that into context, this was Senator Kennedy, John Kennedy from Louisiana, as part of the Senate Judiciary Committee, reading directly from Gender Queer. So, Ericka, here's the thing. So, obviously, this video has gone pretty viral. So, we wanted to put it out there, especially to make sure that the people who did happen to maybe are not on social media, didn't see it, hear this, right? Yep. It's a real issue. But obviously afterwards, the author gets interviewed about all the uproar on this hearing. And here's what her name, Maya Kobabe, again, if I mispronounced it, I apologize. But Maya Kobabe basically said the following. It's being called a children's book. Senator Kennedy implied it was a children's book. But I think that's coming from a misreading of the comic book form. Gender Queer is a comic and in full color, but that doesn't mean it's for children. And so look, I grant you that there are adults that read comic books, but at the end of the day, the majority of comic book readers, I think it's safe to say, are children. So if you put out a comic book, it's so disingenuous and it is so ideologically driven to me that when you put out a comic book, who the hell do you think is going to read it? Children are going to
Well,
read it, right?
and the fact that she's calling it assuming she identifies as a woman, the
No,
fact
no,
that
she
she's
doesn't.
calling the fact that she's calling it a comic book just goes to prove that it actually is meant for children. Because anybody who is like me, who enjoys graphic novels, okay, if you read Marvel, if you read anime, if you read, who is that? There's one we just invested in. Benjamin, who is, yeah, ISOM. ISOM is a new one. You guys should check out ISOM. Those are called graphic novels. The adults who read picture books know that they are called graphic novels, not comic books. And so even the fact that she calls it by the wrong name tells me that she's probably full of it.
Well, first of all, she doesn't go by, well, let me put this. She goes by, where am I? She goes by E-M. What is this?
Is that her
She goes by,
pronouns?
her pronouns are E-M, and E-I-R. Okay. I realize that there's a whole generational, excuse me. There's a whole generational difference between you and I. Can you explain this to me? What is E? I mean, E-M, by the way, you know what I think E-M is? When I used to play Scrabble,
Electronic music.
EM and EN were these little words you use. They were printers measures, right? Right. So N and M, which, they were great filler words if you needed it in Scrabbles. But can you explain to me so EM and EIR, which is ear? I mean, is it like,
No.
so she identifies as an ear? Is that what you're telling me?
Is that there? Is that supposed to be there? So she's just taking like the TH and the H off the front?
Hey, look, right here.
The pronoun nonsense. No one should respect anyone's pronouns, period. If you're not called by something normal and you don't want to be called the pronoun that you obviously look like, too bad, okay?
Yeah,
if you clearly look like a woman and you don't want people to use female pronouns, then do something different. Otherwise, suck it up.
Ericka, breathe. Take a breath. Take a breath. Can you breathe?
No one's pronouns. Nobody's.
Okay. So here's what she goes on to say. I originally wrote it for my parents and then for older teens who were already asking these questions about themselves. I don't recommend this book for kids. So, okay, if you don't recommend this book for kids, then why is it in the elementary school libraries? And why, more importantly, doesn't it have sort of an R or NC-17 kind of a rating?
Your publisher should know that and not be selling them to elementary schools then.
No, well, the publisher cares about profit. That's all the publisher cares about is profit.
Golly.
So folks, look, we appreciate pushing the boundaries a little bit. You can tune back in now. That's fine. Because this whole issue of parental rights, and as we talked about in the beginning of the segment, I think that's part of the formula that whether it's Moms for Liberty or the other parental rights organizations. So as a parent, what are your rights, right? Your rights are, because I'm trying to remember, someone just came out and said the government knows what's best for your children. It was one of the leading politicians. I'm trying to remember who it was that just said that, but it was somebody I think on the judiciary, but I'll have to look that up. But then you go to state officials. So you go to my old home state of New Jersey, and the governor's office, the state of New Jersey, is suing 3 school districts in New Jersey because the governor in New Jersey, who's Murphy, came out with, so where is he? So
good old Charlie.
So it's Manalapan and Englishtown, Marlborough and Middletown. So they adopt policies which was against the state guidance. So they're sued, but and the state guidance is basically that schools do not have to notify parents if a student wants to change their identity, right? So again, as a parent, what are your parental rights? I mean, we don't even have to get into the educational aspect of this, but as a parent, if my child at the age of 15 causes harm, and by harm I mean, let's say that they drive the car. They're not allowed to drive. They drive the car and they injure another person. As the adult or as their parent, I am legally responsible for their actions until they turn age of majority. Right. So if I'm legally
Oh,
responsible for them financially, I'm legally responsible for them morally. What is it that so I'm supposed to say here, teach my kid, and you're not going to tell me if my child starts to identify as a different gender, or worse, you as the school or the guidance counselor is encouraging it, which there are now beyond anecdotal. How many
yep.
examples and instances have you read that this goes on? Because unfortunately, folks, hate to say this, but the enemy is so far inside the gate of education that they're not even trying to hide what they're doing. They're just trying to hold on to power now that the parents are starting to rebel against the total control that the school systems and the state are trying to effect over your rights. Ericka, I don't want
Wild.
to go on a rampage like you just did, but I'm close.
I just wonder, Robert, like, okay, now your kids are grown, okay? Now
Their
you have a
their age of majority, whether or not they're
right.
grown, remains to be seen.
But
But their age of majority.
can you imagine if the school had tried to do this back when your kids were in elementary school? Like, what do you think would have happened? Were you were living in Vermont when your kids were younger? Is that right? Like,
Right. Wait,
what
are you
would have
talking
happened
when my kids were younger or when I was in school?
when your kids were younger?
Okay, because when I
Like,
was in school, the corporal punishment was still allowed. Just so we're clear, teachers, we had a teacher, Mrs. Jeffries, who, and she was this, advanced. What can I call her? She was old, right? And she used to take a yardstick, and she used to hit kids with the yardstick, on their hands, sometimes on their tuchus, right on their backside, and but she would, or then she'd slam it down on the desk when she was angry. So one day, and it kept breaking off pieces, and it broke off in so many pieces that it was this little thing now. So one day, me and a couple other people, we brought in this cap. She goes, "What's that for?" Well, Mrs. Jeffries, we want to turn your yardstick now into an inch stick, a proper inch stick, so we cap the other end for you. I mean, she used to be got detention for that one too, but that's okay. But when I grew up, corporal punishment was allowed in school. When my kids were growing up, you got to remember, we grew up in a small town, or my kids did. It's sort of a
yeah.
mountain town. Um, there were look. In all fairness, my children's elementary school, K-6, had 60 kids, the whole school. So everybody knew everything about everyone. It was a very small community. It's probably not a
Well,
fair question.
but that's what I'm just thinking about. I can't fathom this having worked when I was younger and in elementary school, middle school. I can't imagine this having worked when my parents were in school. And I just wonder,
What do you
is
mean
it
worked? Wait. What do you mean worked?
as in my parents would never ever have allowed our teacher to have a book about sex available to us in the library that we're being encouraged to read. Our guidance counselor never could have said, "Oh, well, let's keep a secret from your parents." Like the stuff that I'm hearing, I can't fathom having been a thing before the last like few years.
I
And
got it.
so I just what did you ever deal with anything like this when your kids were in school? Was there ever anything this salacious or gross or parent disaffirming that the school was doing when your kids were in school?
There's so much I need to respond to that. We are getting the high sign
Okay.
so folks, we're going to suspend animation. I'm going to answer that, Ericka, when we get back on the other side of the break. And folks, you are listening to Of the People with Robert Chernin and Ericka Redic, and you can find us on Twitter at RB Chernin. You can find Ericka at Ericka, help me.
Ericka Redic.
Ericka Redic, right? On
Yeah.
Twitter, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. You can download the podcast anywhere. So, and like us, give us 5 stars or tell us why you won't. But folks, we're going to go to break, make a little money. We're going to be right back.